Why do you care so deeply about this particular bill?
Listen, this is about providing hope. There are many of our Nova Scotians, our friends, and in some cases our family members who are waiting for a life-saving operation. And out of tragic circumstances that happen in our province every day, we can provide some healing for those who are suffering the tragedy, at the same time providing a new lease on life. We've heard very passionately from families on Tuesday about how devastating it was, their loss, but out of that loss, they have found a level of healing by ensuring that other families are better off.
As you know, there are at least some people who have expressed concerns about the bill, some of them in Nova Scotia, some of them not. But what would you say to folks who would argue this is perhaps a bridge too far, that government is overreaching on this?
Well, I would say to them, this bill provides every Nova Scotian with the option to opt out. It's really asking the question, and I would say to them to think about that the very vast majority of us who choose to become organ donors want to make sure that that can happen. And believing by the opt-out clause, it allows the conversation at the bedside after a tragedy to be a very different one, as opposed for a healthcare provider coming out and talking about it in a way that leaving it to the healthcare provider to ask the question. In this case, they're actually coming to confirm consent because everyone is presumed. That makes it a different conversation. So it allows for that to happen. And this is, in some ways, making it easier for the healthcare teams. But as Dr. Beat said to us as we've been going through the journey of putting this bill together, we will require education of Nova Scotians, and along this process that will probably mean Canadians. We're the first, and at the same time ensuring that we provide the supports so that those of us who live in parts of this province where there isn't a tertiary care centre can still have our wishes fulfilled.
Premier, given that this is an innovative bill, have you, has the government done anything to put it through a legal test to make sure it will stand up to any court challenge that might come?
We put it through our own assessment of it. We believe we've met the needs by the opt-out clause. And there's also the issue that even on the presumed consent side, you still have to ask the family. Because if, for example, if I had adopted out and I had a conversation with my family a month before this tragedy and I changed my mind, they could communicate that. So it's really, there's a double piece here. So we believe that will withstand the test.
So families will still have a veto?
What they'll do, the families will have the ability to continue to fulfill the wishes of their loved one, and they will have the most up-to-date wish of that, and it's a chance for them to communicate that.
Okay,
You had talked about, just one last on this. You had talked about meeting the need that Dr. Bead identified. How much of a challenge is that going to be for you? Do you have a sense yet of what kind of a budget commitment you're looking at to meet that need?
So much of what it is around, it's as much an education piece around Nova Scotians. It's part of what that is, and as well an education piece in and around critical care teams that we already have. So how do we train them in and around asking that question? What are the steps required to ensure that we keep the organs healthy? Those kinds of things go through. We believe at the beginning of this, which we've committed and have budgeted for a couple $1 million that will help us roll this out, and we believe that will be sufficient.
This year?
As we go through. So but it won't fully be this year because it'll take, as you know, a budgeting year. It depends on how long it takes us before we do the proclamation.
All right, and just briefly, you said you've already heard from at least one other premier?
Yeah, Premier Moe called me from Saskatchewan yesterday, talking about his province has been looking at it. The member from Truro, Bible Hills, Millbrook, Salmon River spoke about what was going on. Tomorrow is Green Shirt Day. About a young hockey player with Humboldt who was an organ donor to draw attention. He told me he was looking to try to look in, and they actually put in their budget as funding in and around to assess the issue of organ consent.
Does he think that he'll go as far as this province has?
He was calling me to tell me how proud he was of our province for moving forward on that. That his health minister will be reaching out to our health minister and helping to look through this process, and we actually may have a discussion at the national premier's table in Saskatchewan actually in July.
Premier, you took a lot of criticism off the top in question period about comments that you made yesterday. I'm just wondering, your comments were being portrayed by the opposition as being flippant and dismissive. Is that, I want to give you a chance. What were you trying to say yesterday?
In no way does it reflect how I felt about the two letters that came in. In no way is it to reflect how I feel about this issue. What I was saying yesterday is that we had looked at the issue. I had taken the steps of looking whether or not there was information that had come to me. All I was saying was the parts of those letters that pertained to me that I disagreed with what was in it. It's not their assessment was not my experience. I have, as a government, at every opportunity that I have, I surround myself by a reflection of this province, by strong, intelligent women, strong, intelligent men who reflect and give me their points of view on how not only do we govern, but how we can best provide public policy. I have done it from the very time I've been in. I'm proud of my record on gender equality, and everyone should feel safe in the workplace. And while we have a difference on what happened, I address it to the best of my ability, and I laid out what I knew, and I look forward to continuing to move forward and making sure
How do you,
So what
all
have
of
you
our
done to address
all
it?
of our sons and daughters see themselves in this province. I looked at the issue, addressing it, that came to me. There was two letters that there was two different opinions on it. I had one that said that I was told the information that there was no contact, both that was not told to me. So that's how I addressed it. Then the letters were addressed to the Speaker. The Speaker actually manages the House of Assembly, not the Premier. If this is he's in charge of the chamber. What I said, though, to our members, tone matters, including mine, including members of the opposition, all members of this House. One of the questions I spoke, their tone matters. People should feel safe. If the incidents, if how those two former members felt at that time is described in their letters, we need to make sure that feeling is not there in future dates.
What did you mean when you said that the members of your party were just young guys?
What I talked about was in opposition. I wasn't talking just. I didn't just talk about them. I had a number. I have more than just guys in my caucus.
But you said
it was
they
pretty
were young guys.
aggressive opposition. I'm sitting in there getting it from all sides, not just guys. What I was saying to you in the chamber, it becomes pretty adversarial by all members. I've been on the receiving end of some of it, and I've been giving it on the other end. That's all I was saying. And I said that conversation, which if you go back and look at the rest of what I said in around that conversation that happens in the chamber should not be spilling out beyond the chamber.
Is this a done deal, would you say? Is there anything else that you see coming from this?
Well, I've continued to do what I can do with it, and we're continuing to move forward.
how do you
Did Zach
square
Churchill
what,
harass members of other parties?
No, I don't believe so.
how do you square what you're saying with what Maureen McDonald is saying?
Well, listen, that's a better question for her, but I can tell you, I only know mine. I can't speak for Maureen or any other member. I can tell you, I can speak for me. I know what I experienced. I know what I was told, and I was not told that there was any physical contact in the house.
But you know Maureen McDonald.
I do. I have a great deal of regard for Maureen. She is she was a health minister, a finance minister. I think the first female finance minister in the province's history, I believe. I do, but. When I spoke to her a number of times, but that's a better question for her, but I can tell you that at no time did she or anyone else say to me that there was physical contact by a member of mine with any member of this house.
Do you remember the conversation you had about Zach and what happened with Denise Peterson-Rayfield?
I can't tell you the exact conversation I had with her, but I can tell you, that I would know if somebody says to me there was physical contact. That is, and anyone who knows me knows that would be a deal breaker for me. Anybody who's ever spent any time with me would know. I would remember that very clearly, and so would any member of my team who that was being alleged of.
They'd not be on your team anymore.
Yeah, you said deal breaker in what way?
Because it's unacceptable at any point, but particularly of physical violence towards anyone. But it's unacceptable when it's violence towards women. If you look at what I've been doing, I've said this many times. One of the greatest challenges as an MLA, one of the hardest things I've had to deal with, is constituents who talk about domestic violence. It's lasting impact on how you think. It is just simply would not be tolerated of any kind under my leadership in any workplace that I was in charge of, and if I was in a workplace that condoned it, I'd leave it myself.
Thanks, Premier.